In keeping with the theme of this week, I thought it wise we continue on the subject of being instantly demonetized. To do that, we're going to have two stories, one involving a teacher, the other involving a mother, both female, both committing a crime, both going about it in a rather unique way, so much so that yes, they regret it and they have both pled guilty, but it is worth pointing out and then mocking a little because it's just ridiculous. The first one concerns this lady here, Puk Blundell, and I am not sorry for mispronouncing your name if I have mispronounced it, who pled guilty to luring two boys, one aged 14, the other 15, into having sex with photos that were shared via social media in the form of Snapchat. Now, I had heard rumours a while back that Snapchat was being used to lure young girls. I had heard about this. I had not heard about it when there was a mother involved luring young boys. Now, she has pled guilty to the charges of luring these boys to her car to have sex with them, and she received a sentence of 4 years and 9 months minimum and as much as 15 years in prison, with her being quoted as saying, after being sentenced, "This has been the biggest regret of my life."
This has been the biggest regret of my life. My family means everything to me, and I've caused them great pain through these regretful choices I've made. My number one priority has always been my 2 children, and I've provided for them in a way nobody else can.
Well, it's certainly going to be hard to trump this one, isn't it? Now, you can trace this all the way back to the summer of 2016, when the teenage boys were lured to her car by her sending photos of herself nude and engaged in sexual acts via Snapchat. She then took the opportunity to instruct the boys on how, where, and when they would meet. This to me shows a level of premeditation, where the sentence should be severe for it. She has gone out of her way to get these boys and have them. And it's not sex at that point, is it? It's rape. One of the mothers of the then 14-year-old said, "You made a conscious effort on several occasions to make arrangements to meet my son, sneak out of your house, start your car, leave your husband and children at home, and drive to my son's father's house, back into the driveway between midnight and 4 a.m., wait for my son to run the driveway, commit a crime and leave. Did you know that this was wrong? Did you ever worry about the harm you were doing to my son?" The total number of times she has been or has confessed to having sex with or raping the 14-year-old is between 8 and 15 times, but the number had changed a few times in court to 2. Right. Laziness, also being the genius that she is, tried to mitigate the guilt by explaining to authorities that she was merely helping him release his whatever. That is a quote. That's the whole quote. That is not valid at all, really, is it? Furthermore, the county prosecutor, John Vila, claimed that both Laginus and her husband wrote letters to the judge blaming the incidents on the victims, because that always works, doesn't it? When somebody who is not of age can't give reasonable consent, even though it has worked in the past, in different states. Regardless of all this, she pled guilty to third-degree criminal sexual assault, accosting a child for immoral purposes, and furnishing obscenity to children, with prosecutors obviously pushing for the harsher sentence, which is essentially 5 years before her release, upon good behaviour and of course admitting guilt and going through whatever programs the state of Michigan imposes upon her. Still though, 5 years, she's 38, 43 minimum before she gets out. I guess her kids are going to be so damn proud of her. On to the next one. Now this one involves a teacher. This teacher, her name is Brittany Zamora, and she was arrested after her victim's parents found nude images and explicit material on his phone. Him being 13 at the time, yes, it's quite understandable they would be quite horrified. The parents being quoted during the court case as saying, "Our child's childhood is now over." Understandably so. He's now going to be stood outside talking about propane, smoking cigarettes. As all grown men do, don't they? Is that how America works? In newly released police bodycam footage, it showed the teacher taken into custody while wearing a dress and blah blah blah, while also trying to hide her face. You were screwed the moment you were arrested, milady. Now she did admit to having sex with the teen at least 4 times. Rape. You raped him 4 times. With one of the instances taking place in a classroom. I know this fits every teenage boy's dream. I know when I was a teenager my form tutor was stunning, and honestly, yeah, I'd get it. But now I'm older, I understand as a much older person that would have been wrong if it had happened. because she is in a position of trust. It is her job to teach you, to educate you, unless she's your sex ed teacher. But she wasn't your sex ed teacher. This woman went so far as to drive to his grandparents so he could sneak out to be with her. Now, in the investigation, or the interrogation, Brittany Zamora did shut down investigators' request for her to explain why it happened, but of course she won't do that without legal representation, so I understand that. She needs someone there to say to her, yeah, you're fucked from about the wrist up to the elbow once you're in prison. And this is further supported by her concerns about being behind bars, citing her petite frame, quoted her saying, "I'm little, they're gonna tear me apart." You're quite right. Sex offenders don't last long in prison, and that's because you are a sex offender. You abused a little boy, he was 13, still a boy, therefore you are the bottom of the ladder. The only people that are beneath you are parents that abuse their children sexually, and people that drink soy. Understandably, with all of this, Zamora's husband has taken to defending her, saying that she's the best person I've ever known. If that's the best person you've ever known, I'd hate to meet the worst person you've ever known. And give it time. Once she's convicted as a sex offender, you might start to change your tune when you realise, unless you yourself are in your teens, you're a bit old for her. Now, during a phone call with the parents of the victim, Zamora has apologised, telling them she intended to resign her position. I'm pretty sure she'll be fired anyway. However, she was not able to give them a reason as to why the sex assaults happened, the ones that she has already admitted to. It still says alleged in the articles, but as she's confessed, not so alleged now. To which she replies, to this why she can't give a firm answer, I ask myself the same question. I just got really close after I think everything went down and we're like, how could that happen? We just got close. In a rather interesting twist, the parents of the teenager are now suing for £1.9 million, so I assume that converted to dollars, in damages. I'm not sure if they're going to get that, or if they're going to get any figure near to that. And I'm not sure if they're suing the school or the state or the county, but the lawsuit has been filed to Maricopa County Superior Court. So we'll certainly see how that goes, and I will, of course, as with all stories like this that are progressing, keep you up to date on it, because I find this to be fascinating. I find it fascinating that these people abuse their positions of trust. Some get very lenient sentences, which has been a growing trend with the number of sex offender teachers I've covered. Yes, and I noticed, all female, and that is certainly something I should address when it comes to sex offenders that are teachers. If there are male ones that get reported, I will of course make it a point to cover them as well. It is only right. But I find it fascinating the more prevalent sex offenders that are teachers that we hear about are female, and they all seem to get very soft sentences, which I think many of us can agree is inconsistent. But of course, at state level, they are in charge of it, and there are mitigating factors in each individual case, which is why we shouldn't treat the case as a wider thing. It should be treated solely on what happened then. But the sentences when admitting guilt shouldn't then be brought down so far that they are on par with, well, petty crimes really. Not that any crime is really petty when you think about it, but I think you all know what I mean. I guess the inconsistency when it comes to sentencing will always exist, and it will always exist because we treat the case individually, and because of how the case is played out, the judge has seen fit to give a softer sentence for reasons that are totally unique to them and every other judge. As with all cases like this, I'm very much interested to know what you think on the sentences. I will link both articles below, so I hope you'll have a lovely Thursday, and thank you all for listening.